everyone. Thank you for coming on early. We'll get started right around 11. Hi, Amanda.
Good morning.
How are we doing on this gloomy day?
I just had some tech problems, so I just wanted to give you a heads up that if something happens, it forced me to restart. I did restart, but it just gave me another warning and I did it again. So if anything goes haywire, I'll be back in like a minute or two.
Perfect. That'd be a great time for me to launch some poll questions, so no worries.
Perfect.
Thanks for the heads up.
And you just let me know when you want to do the polls and all of that, and we'll go back and forth.
Okay, great. Maybe when you stop for questions,
Questions?
stop for like 3 questions and I'll do it
Perfect.
that time. Good morning, everyone. I'm super excited for today's training. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. Just allow some people to log in. We had over 60 people register, so we'll see. I'm really excited. Thank you for being here on time and hang in there for a minute or so.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, Amanda, what do you say? Ready to kick it off?
Let's go for it now that I'm not on mute.
Perfect.
So I am in a little bit of a different system. So when I'm sharing, can't see the screen. So I'll just pause in between.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
But just let me know if you could see.
Yes.
Awesome. We ready?
We're ready.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this workshop on Google Ads to maximize ROI. If you're not on mute, please go on mute, and so that way we don't interrupt the presentation, but we will stop like every few slides to answer questions. So please, if you have any questions, just write them down when we get to a pause. Elena will also be taking polls to get some feedback. We love to have presentations that you want to see. So if you are looking for anything particular, just please always reach out. So we'll get started on maximizing Google Ads to maximize your ROI. This is renamed. It was formerly AdWords. So if you hear AdWords being thrown around when you're doing your online research, it's because Google just had a rebrand to Google Ads. So if you see AdWords and Google Ads, it's the same platform. It's just rebranded to Google Ads, similar to how Google My Business is now Google Business Profile. It's just a rebrand. So to get started, this is going to be kind of an intro level workshop to growing with Google Ads. If you're looking for something more advanced, we can definitely do that. There are a ton of fun things you can do with Google Ads. However, I wanted to make sure that we started here so that way we could get everyone up to speed and then give you the basic overviews of how to get started. So we're going to talk about how to reach more customers, to work on your targeting, your messaging, and all of that. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Amanda Bass. As you know, most of you know me here. And this is my email. So if you have any questions, you could email me anytime. Okay, so 49% of shoppers start at Google, right? So how often do you yourself head over to Google to make a purchase? Maybe you're searching to confirm something that you want to buy is in stock, or maybe while you're searching for one product, you discover another brand of product that's interesting to you. And this happens all the time. So when we say we need your business to have an online presence, this is what we're talking about. This is not just a catchy phrase. In a 2019 study, when Google surveyed users, and over half of the users discovered new products when they're searching for something else. So people will go online searching for one product, and then they'll discover yours, and then you have an opportunity to win a new customer. So every search opportunity is an opportunity for you to get a new customer or a repeat customer. So the benefits of online advertising, and you may be familiar with the traditional advertising like print, radio, television. However, when you place your ad in a publication or network, you can reach potential customers more targeted, right? So when you place your ad in a newspaper or print, there's not a whole lot of tracking and targeting you can do. You can know the overall demographic of that population. But with Google Ads or any ads, really, you can get very granular with who you're targeting. So you're able to place your ad not only targeted with keywords, but you're also able to get locations. You could get income brackets. You could get specific search phrases. You can get all really deep in your targeting. So that way you're targeting your ideal customer. And this is great, especially if you know your ideal customer. This could be an easy win for you. However, if you don't know that granular, your perfect customer, this is an opportunity to get some data and learn and test. So you can determine where your ads appear, and you can also determine how much you spend. So I think the daily minimum is maybe $3, right? But depending on your keywords, that might not get you very far, but you do not require a large budget to have an online presence on Google. You're also able to measure your results more easily. You're able to see how many people saw your ad, how many clicked on your ad, and how many people are taking those next steps and going to your website and purchasing. So when you're looking at, how to get your presence amplified online, this is a great way to appear at the top and to kind of compete and win for that search query. So we're going to talk about how this workshop is going to flow. We're going to begin with how the Google Ads platform works. We're going to talk about advertising on Google, and that's the process of getting your Google Ads set up, creating your first campaign. We're also going to talk about some tips that can make your ads perform better. We're going to talk about measuring your campaign success, and then we'll wrap up by sharing some additional resources, questions and answers. And then at the very end, I have everything linked. So you will receive the slide deck, and everything is clickable. So all of the resources that I used for this presentation will be at the end. So if you want to dive in deeper in any of these topics, I send you directly to the source. So let's take a look at how Google Ads work. I think we don't have to stop right now for questions, right? It's pretty early and I think we're good unless I
Amanda,
can't
there
see the
is one
chat.
in
So,
the chat.
okay, perfect. I can't see the chat. I'm sorry.
No worries. So Cynthia asked, how do we identify correctly? I'm a home baker and people show up at my house for coffee and desserts. I'm identified as bakery, but only do orders.
Okay, so I think what you may be referring to is your Google business profile, where your location on the map is identified. There is a way to set that so your home address does not show. I believe we did that presentation 2 months ago, Elena. Do you remember? It was kind of recent, right? The Google, or maybe it was the end of last year.
Yeah, I think it was the end of last year.
We have that presentation. We can send it to you. So you can go over how to adjust your Google business profile to not have your home address on there. As far as like doing only online orders, Google Ads gives you an opportunity to put what they call a final destination. And that's where you put the final URL where you want people to go to. And wherever you're leading them has to be very clear that you don't accept walk-ins, that you're only online orders.
Beautiful. Cynthia, thank you. I will send that to you. And also, if you don't see, there is a poll up just asking what subjects would be most beneficial to you. I appreciate the 8 of you who have responded so far. Thank you.
If there's not anything on this list that you're looking for, please email Elena, and we talk all the time so we could make sure what you're looking for gets presented.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, let me know when you're ready to move on.
You can go ahead, Amanda. Thank you.
All right, perfect. I don't think it'll let me because of the poll. Oh, wait, there we go. Never mind. So everything that on Google is keyword based, right? It all begins with a search. So you type your keyword or phrase into the search bar. This is called your search query. And as you may know from your own experience, depending on what you enter into this search query can yield very different results, right? So if you're looking for something very specific, you can type in, like, if you're looking for 3-inch blue heels for dancing, right? Like that's a very specific search query and you know what you're looking for, and that will yield very different results than if you just search high heel shoes, right? So you want to begin with being very specific with your search query and thinking about how your potential customers are searching for you. And then once the user puts in their search query, Google's algorithm does its thing. It'll scan the website, it'll search results, and then it'll help the user find these answers. And like typically when you're looking at like organic stuff, it's below the ads or sponsored posts. So if you're not able to get top of page on organic, some businesses choose to be top of page for paid because this puts you above even the organic results. So this, this is a little different strategy than SEO, right? SEO is those organic search results. This is a paid placement, right? So this is not a free placement. So it's a pay to play. So we're going to talk about how this Google Ads algorithm works, and it's an auction. So what that means is when you set up your ad account, you're basically saying that you're bidding on these keywords, and you set how much you're willing to bid on these keywords, and based on your bid will depend on what you're appearing for. It's not only your bid. We'll get into all the different layers for how to appear in a search result. And I just also want to point out that when you place a bid on a keyword, that's the maximum amount of money that you're willing to pay on that click, for that click, right? That doesn't mean that every single time somebody clicks on your ad, you're going to pay that much. That just means what your maximum bid is, right? Because it's an auction. So you're saying blue shoes is my #1 seller, and I'm willing to bid $5 on a click because I know my conversion rate is 7%, and I know that it takes this many clicks, and then usually people will buy a $200 pair of shoes. So it's really in your best interest to know your numbers, to kind of understand, especially when you're first starting, where that break-even point is, right? Because in the beginning, you're going to be testing and you're going to be like seeing what works for your audience. So it's really important to know your numbers because it can be very easy to lose a lot of money quickly on any ad platform. So let's dive a little deeper into how this works. So Google determines if your ad will appear based on what they call an ad rank. So if you have the highest ad rank, then you will appear at the very top as the very top ad placement. And typically the top ad has what we call the most real estate, right? So if you ever notice when you're searching for something, the top ad always has the most information. That's kind of the prize for winning the very top spot. You get extra site links, you get extra extensions, you get extra call outs. So your space that you take up is much larger. And usually that makes people click more your ad over an ad below it. So this will be your top ranking, and then you'll have your second, and then some some search queries will have 3 or 4 results. It really just depends on how competitive that keyword is. So when you're thinking of your bid, that's not the only factor in what's going to determine if you're going to be number one. So a couple of the other things is the quality of your ad. So what that means is like what your ad copy is saying. Like if you're selling blue shoes, does your ad copy reflect blue shoes, right? Does it say buy shoes online, or does it say buy blue shoes online? So when you connect your keyword to your ad copy, you get a higher rank. You take it a step further, the landing page or where you're sending people. If you send them to a page of just general shoes, your ad rank is going to be lower. But if your keyword is blue shoes, your ad copy says blue shoes, and then the landing page has blue shoes on it and it talks about blue shoes, this boosts your ad rank. And that means you pay less for a click to appear number one. So it's really important that when you're thinking about setting up your ads, that you're in complete alignment, right? Because these keywords can be very competitive. So you also want to make sure that if you're going to spend money on it, that you're being thoughtful about each step of the process. There's other things that you could either bid up or bid down on, like location and device, right? So if you say, I know people are not really searching to buy between 7 p.m. and midnight, you can say, I'm willing to pay 20% less or 30% less to appear in that search result. So you could get really if you know your data and you know when people are spending time on your site and when they're buying, you can get really clever about how you're targeting people. And if you're saying, I know on Thursday afternoons, that's when we get the most conversions. You can say, I'm willing to spend 10, 20, 30, whatever percent more to be the number one, because you know that's when your shoppers are online buying. So you want to think about all of those things. And one of the tricky things is your ad rank is not published, right? So they're not telling you you have a low or high ad rank, but they will tell you that you have a high or a low quality score, and you can do this based on keywords. So line by line, it'll say you have a good score for this, you have a low score for that. So when you really want to be thinking about every step of the process, it's not just keywords and getting an ad up. You want to make sure everything is completely aligned. So this auction is a puzzle, right? So you have a few different pieces. You have the location, you have your ad, you have your keywords, and you have your landing page experience, right? So when you're thinking about creating an ad, it's not just an ad. You have to think about all the components that make your ad rank high. So if you don't have a landing page for blue shoes, maybe you shouldn't be talking about blue shoes and have blue shoes in your ad, right? You want to make sure everything is congruent. So whatever people are searching for, they land directly there. Have you ever searched for something and you get to the page and it's not exactly what you're looking for? What's the first thing you do, right? You hit the back button, you start again, right? If you create any friction in this process, people are going to go somewhere else. So you want to make this as smooth as possible. So that way, exactly what they're searching for, they get exactly to that page and you make it easy for them to buy. And there's these are all clickable. So you could go through all of these when you get this presentation. So these are the things you can control when you're creating your ad rank, right? On top of budget, right? Because you could spend like so much money on ads, right? But what the things you can control, because somebody is always going to have a deeper pocket than you, right? Unless you're like a big, like top 10 company, really, like you have to be kind of smart about how you're investing your budget. So the things you can focus on is your keyword research, right? Like how exactly are people searching for you? If you were to ask your ideal customer how they found you, think about how they're searching for you. It might be different than what you think your keywords are. Also, your keyword organization. So if you sell 50 different things and you have 50 different things in one ad group, it's not super clear what you're offering. So you want to kind of organize your keywords and where you put in like with like, and there are some examples later in this presentation. Refining your ad text, right? Testing out your ad copy. Does it work best when you're telling buy blue shoes now? Or does it say check out our wide variety of blue shoes, like world's largest selection of blue shoes, right? Like you might have to test out how you're presenting your offer to people. And it's completely normal to not hit it out of the park the first time, right? This is a trial and error process. You are constantly dialing things in. Your landing pages. So you want to follow best practices for your landing pages. And what that means is you don't want to send them to a general landing page or your home page. Usually you want to send them to specifically what the keyword is related to. You also want to have some best practices about like the layout and organization of your keyword, your landing page. You don't want a really cluttered page that people can't find what they're looking for. If you just even Google landing page best practices, there are a ton of resources there. If that's a topic you'd like to see, that's something we could cover in the future. And then one thing that most people continue to overlook is negative keywords. And what this is you're telling Google, if this word is in the whole sentence or in the search query, I don't want to be shown. So for example, for blue shoes, right? Like if you don't want to be shown, if you're selling blue shoes, you don't want to be known for blue shoes restoration or blue shoes repair, or you know what I mean? So then you add those as negative keywords. So if people are searching to how to restore their blue suede shoes, you're not appearing for that search results because you want to sell a product. You're not giving a DIY or a tutorial on how to do something. So you want to be thoughtful about that as well. And that can be a little tricky, but you want to think about all the irrelevant search terms and then add them as negatives to really refine how people are finding you. And this is how they'll appear in the search results. So I just did a quick search, how to learn Google Ads, right? And here are the top results. And you can see like you have your first, second, and sometimes, like I said, there'll be 3 or 4. And then you can kind of see how the different approaches to how these companies are approaching how they want to be shown, right? So this LinkedIn is clever, right? They're saying like, do you want to do LinkedIn ads instead, right? So they know who they're targeting, right? So, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I do a lot of stuff with professional development. So based on my behaviors online and based on the websites I visit, they know that I'm probably interested in LinkedIn ads, right? They know that I'm a good target for that. So they use some clever audiences there. And you can see here, like sometimes it'll say ad or sponsored. I've been seeing more sponsored than ad lately. And if people view your ad, you don't get charged, but you do get charged if somebody clicks on your ad. This is a pay per click platform. There's also some strategies more advanced in Google where you can pay per conversion or pay per view, but to get started, pay per click is the most traditional pricing model. So you don't pay to simply show an ad, you pay when a user takes action and actually clicks on the ad. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then you can also appear on other networks. This is called the Google Display Network. So sometimes they appear, if you're ever reading, like I notice this a lot on like online publications or newspapers. You ever notice ads within those websites? So you'll be reading an article on like Forbes, and then you'll see advertisements put in. This is part of Google Ads, and this is their display network that you can opt into. And non-Google properties, make up probably 90% of online websites, right? So like every other website in the world has the opportunity to monetize and use this display network, and you can place your ads. If you know your type of publications your ideal customer spends time on, you can place your ads there. We're going to be focusing on the search network, but this is just to give you an idea of some of what you can do with the Google Ads.
Amanda, we have a couple questions.
Yeah, let's stop here.
Awesome. So Kay said, for keywords, can you feed off your competitors? For example, if one of my competitors is XYZ company, can we ask Google to show our company ad when someone searches for XYZ company of their products?
Yes. So you can bid on your competitors' keywords, but you cannot put your competitors' names in your ad copy, right? So say you're McDonald's and you want to bid on Chick-fil-A's ads, right? People searching for Chick-fil-A. You can bid on Chick-fil-A keywords, but your ads cannot say anything with their brand in your ad text. So you could say, you know, burgers are better than chicken or whatever, you know what I mean? Because you're bidding on chicken stuff. However, just remember when we were talking about the ad rank stuff, because your landing page is not going to send somebody to Chick-fil-A, right? So your ad rank is going to be lower. Chances are they're always going to outrank you in the ad, right? They're going to beat you in the ad, but that doesn't mean you cannot appear. You can absolutely compare, and bidding on competitive terms is a strategy that a lot of companies use.
Thank you for that. And then we have, Alexis said LinkedIn isn't the top result on that ads page, but they have links in their result.
Let me go back. I'm not understanding your question. Maybe I'll go back and it'll. All right. What was the question again?
So I don't really know if this is a question, but it says LinkedIn isn't the top result on that ads page, but they have links in their result.
Do you want to come off mute and I don't know who it was, if they want to come off mute, because maybe I'm just not understanding.
Alexis, feel free to come
Yeah,
off.
it's actually Andrew.
Oh, Andrew. Yep.
Account.
Hi, Andrew.
Hey, I thought you said before that if you're the top of page result, it's like the top one, you get rewarded with more information. But in this case, it's not the very top result, or is this still considered top of page? I guess is
Still considered top of page, but you'll also notice there's no hard, fast rules. So it doesn't always mean if you're number one, you get the most. You usually get the most. This also could mean that WordStream opted out of adding these additional, these are called like extensions.
Okay.
It could also mean that they don't want you to go anywhere else, but specifically to this guide.
To one page. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Always
you.
fill out the extensions. Always fill everything out, because if you have the chance to appear with your competitor and they don't do it, but they're going to outbid you in their budget, you might still be able to win that because you might have something in those that the ad above doesn't want, right? So if I was to do this, if I was searching this, right, and I don't want to try LinkedIn ads, like they're probably sending me this, I'm probably served this because in their audience targeting, they know I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, right? Because Google knows everything. So that's probably why they were like, you don't want to spend money on Google ads, you want LinkedIn ads. But however, if I was looking to learn Google ads, I wouldn't want to go to LinkedIn. I would still go to number one because this guide to running Google ads is like exactly what I'm searching for. But if I was like, oh, actually, LinkedIn ads might make more sense, and then I'm looking at ad pricing and reporting, I might click on that. So it just depends on the intent. Does that make sense?
Totally. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Amanda. We have one more question from Kays. What's the difference between ad and sponsored?
Same thing. It's the same thing. Sometimes it'll say ad, sometimes it will say sponsored. In the past, it only said ad. I'm seeing sponsored more frequently when I do searches. And I'm not sure if, you know, these ad platforms get sued all the time, right, for transparency. So that might be something that they're working on to be more transparent, or to appear more transparent, I should say, because the ad was so small, right? It's 2 letters. It's easy for people to overlook. Tons of times, users weren't savvy enough to realize that they were clicking on an ad and not an organic search result. So I think it's just a transparency thing.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I have one more question.
Yeah.
You're saying you can't use competitors' branding and things like that in your ad copy. What if your competitor's name is something like generic about the function? Like let's say they are Blue Shoes Incorporated or something like that. Is there any kind of, I guess, leeway to be able to use it still?
Yes and no. So if they have a trademark on their brand and the person running their ad sees it, they could definitely file a grievance against you. And sometimes even Google will say you're unable to post this, like it'll flag your ad because they have their own like algorithm and AI. So sometimes you'll publish an ad and it'll go live, but then something will trigger it and it'll say you're not able to use your competitor's brand name.
Thank you.
And if sometimes, like if you get too many of those, they'll like shut your account down. So be careful. I know, so I worked for a brand that had multiple brands in it, right? So say it was like a supermarket that sold multiple brands of food. So like if people are searching for chicken nuggets in Shaw's, like what's the brand? Tyson chicken nuggets. Sometimes if you have agreements with those brands where they're saying you can bid on my keywords, it's allowed, but sometimes these brands are like, I don't care if you sell my product, you can't bid on my keywords. So you can, but you can't. So it really depends on the situation.
Is that a way for a company to essentially like sequester a keyword by
The way
naming
for
themselves for what they want?
if there's a way for them to buy direct. So if I sell blue shoes, my Blue Shoes Incorporated, and all I sell is blue shoes, and you are a third party seller of blue shoes, I make more money if you come directly to me versus the third party, because I have to cut you in on the deal, right? Because you're the third party. So it's a way to have control of your branding keywords. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Great questions. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of setting up your ad account. So this is a free platform. So it's free to use, and you can use the features in there, such as some of the keyword planning and all of that, but to run an ad is not free. So there's no transactional fees, there's no startup fees, no minimum commitments, no cancellation fees. If you run an ad and it's not successful, you can turn it off, there's no penalties. However, you do pay for your ads, right? So while the platform is free to use, it is not free to run an ad, if that makes sense. But there are some cool features if you're not going to run ads, like their keyword planner is probably the best. That's my favorite one. So you get started here. You just go to ads.google.com. There'll be a link on that, so you can go directly there. When you set up a new account, it'll automatically default to a smart mode, or their smart campaigns. And this is the easiest way to get started, because it'll scan your website or your landing page where you're sending them, and it'll kind of give you suggestions. This is a good place to start. However, you have to monitor it very closely, because it will spend your money and quickly. So it's a good place to get started. If you're unfamiliar with how people are searching for you, it's a good place to understand, because Google will show you what the keywords people searched for. So it'll say people searched for most comfortable blue shoes, and you appeared for this ad, and it can give you insight on how people are searching for you. So it is a good starting point. However, there are other campaign types that could be more tailored to your audience and behaviors. So at this point, you're going to do two things. You're going to create your Google Ads account, and it'll create your first smart campaign. It defaults you there. There's a little thing on the bottom that says switch to expert mode. You can do that right away. Or if you just go through this and enter your business name, you're going to have to set all this up anyway. So just go through this process, get your business name entered. It's going to ask you your website, right? So make sure that you may not send them to your homepage, right? So be very specific about where you're sending them. So have this thought out before you get the process started. So you want to take the searcher directly to the most relevant product or service page, what they're searching for. If you don't have a website, you can send them to your Google business profile. They can take action there. So the person who was a baker that you wanted to schedule an appointment or book an appointment, if you don't have a website, you can send them there, which is why it's also important to make sure your Google business profile is properly set up. If you're going to use that, you should have it properly set up anyway, but if you're going to use that as your website or your landing page experience, you want to make sure that's all set up properly. Oh, did I go too far? No. Okay. All right. So after you enter in that URL or your website, it's going to give you a preview of what it's going to look like on mobile and desktop. Make sure it looks good, right? If you see something wonky, or if you see a layout a little bit weird, you might have to do some editing on your website. You just want to make sure your website looks good. It's easy to use no matter what device they're using, right? So if they're on mobile or desktop, you want to make sure it looks good on both. And if the experience is not good, just go and make some changes before you send traffic there. You don't want to pay for traffic to come to your website if they're not able to take the action you want them to take. So now you can select your goal, right? So this is, do you want people to call you, right? Like, so if you're a service-based, you're a plumber, you want people to call you right now, right? They have a leak, they have whatever, you want them to call you right now. You don't want to send them to a landing page where they have to fill out a form. Some searches require immediate responses. So a good action would be a phone call. You could also send people to sales page or sign up if you want them to opt in, like that first example that it had, the word stream and then LinkedIn. The word stream one is an opt-in to get you to enter your email to join their list. You can just send traffic to a store, or if you want to get more views or engagement on YouTube, you can also do conversions, right? Like, so if your only goal is conversions, you can also do conversion goals. However, it's more expensive to start at conversion if your website doesn't have a history of constant conversions. So sometimes it's a good place to start is like either website views or signups. So that way you can retarget them later and say you visited my website and then send them. It's cheaper to retarget than to get new clicks. And then you'll write your text ad. So this is where you'll be able to put in all of these things. So you'll see there's 3 headlines. It doesn't always show 3, right? And you do have an option. So say it'll mix and match, it'll create variations of these, but there is an opportunity to pin. If you are like, I always want the first line to appear as not your average jams. You can pin that, and then it'll pin that one and then rotate the other ones. And then you have 30 characters. So sometimes you have to get very creative on how you word your headlines. And then one thing to note is the first letter of the text is always capitalized. So if you see here, not your average jams, so many delicious flavors, every first letter is capitalized. It's easier for people to read like that. And Google is very much about usability and user experience. So that's why it's like that. So it won't flag you if you don't do it, but you're going to have better results if you do. So just make sure you're always doing that. You can add the call button, and this is a clickable call button, and it sends directly to whatever phone number you put in, but the phone number that it appears is not always the same. So that means like they create like, so if you were to hit call, click to call, and then call it back later, it might not go to the same number. So that's just a function of Google, but you put your phone number in and it will always ring to your direct line. And so you want to make sure that all of your themes are in line, right? So you want to make sure that when you start putting in keywords, it'll give you some suggested keywords, and it'll say, oh, if you're bidding on jams and jellies, jam pepper might be a good one for you. If it is, hit it. If it isn't, you can add it as a negative. So I like to keep a spreadsheet of all the keywords, and you can download these right from Google. That makes it easier to keep spreadsheets. But if it makes sense, like jam making equipment is probably, if you're selling jam, is probably, you don't want to appear for jam making equipment. So I would, if I was running this account, I would put equipment as a negative keyword. You want to make sure you're doing as much work on your keywords as you are doing on your negative keywords. So another example is for keyword groupings, right? So if you sell jewelry, like this is the way you could break it down, right? So you don't want to put your wedding rings, earrings, wedding bands, gold engagement, jewelry, all in one campaign. It's just too spread out. You want to create different ad groups with each keyword cluster together. So that way you're able to put just wedding ring keywords, just wedding ring landing pages, and get that ad rank nice and high versus getting everything in one, and then your ad rank being lower, and then you ultimately paying more for a click. So you can also decide where you want your ad placed, and you can do this by radius, and you can put this an address or a zip code, and then you can scroll it for as low as 3 miles, as large as 40, or you could say, I have 10 zip codes that I know most of my clients are in. I want to target only those. You're also able to do that. Or you can say, I'm nationwide, and you want to go and add nation state by state. Or you could say, I know California and Florida are my biggest markets. I only want to show ads there. So you really control where your ad is shown. And it'll show you when you enter in like the highlighted area. So if you were to drag that 15 miles up and down, it would show you, so you're able to do cities, states, regions, zip codes, countries, whatever is best for your business. here is where you'll set your daily budget. So let me just go over this. So if your daily budget is $1 a day, you'll always spend $30 a month. I think the plus or minus is 10%. So you could spend between 27 and 33. However, you may notice if you put in a budget for $1 a day, you may notice some days spends $5 and some days spend 50 cents. Some days it's an average of those 30 days. So if you set a budget for $3 and you notice tomorrow it spent $7, don't panic yet, because it's looking at it as an average of 30 days. And you'll see that it'll give you the estimated number of clicks. It'll give you estimated what you're going to pay per month. Or you can say, you know what, I want to enter my own budget, and it'll calculate for you when you do enter your own budget. You always want to look about this on a monthly standpoint, right? So if you know you're going to run ads for 2 weeks and you're bidding $10 a day, you know, in those 2 weeks, you're going to spend $140. Some days might spend $20. Some days might spend max. It's an average of your ad length. So it's actually 30.4. So whatever your budget is, multiply that by 30.4. So if you said you're going to spend $30 a day, month, 30.4, what is that? Is how much the maximum budget would be. So let's do some math. 30 times 30.4. So you'll end up, spending about that $34. So, and you're only charged for the clicks you receive. So remember, if your ad is showing and you're still appearing in search results, you only get charged if they click. And sometimes this can even be good. So somebody might click on one ad, remember your name, and then just go direct. So you might see a correlation between your direct and organic traffic going up, because people start searching for you differently and coming directly to you. But if you change your budget, if you increase it in the middle of a billing cycle, so you'll be charged the new average of your daily budget. So the way Google bills is they'll do a monthly billing or a threshold. So you could say, charge my card every $500, or you could say, charge it once a month, or you could say, and if you say you do $500 or $100, whatever your threshold is, and you hit that a few times a month, your card will get deducted those many times a month. Or if you're just like, just put me on a monthly billing, take it all at once. You get to decide that. And this can be great for inventory management, right? So if you're saying, I can't float $2,000 in ads once a month, but I know if I'm making a sale once or twice a week and the inventory and the cash comes in, and I want that deducted every once a week or every $400. So think about it in terms of inventory management as well, like what makes sense for you as a business owner. So once everything is set up, you just want to look at everything again, make sure everything looks good, check for spelling errors, check for anything that's coming out to you. And then when you're ready to go, you are ready to publish. So you're going to be asked for your payment information. You could always turn this on and then be like, turn it off at any time. So if you turn this on and you had committed to $500 a month and you get $200 in, and then you're like, oh, actually, this is not working, you can turn your ad off at any time. Again, there's no prepayment penalty. There's no cancellation fee. So don't feel like if you put your credit card in, when you put your card in, they will send your, card a bill for like $1, and then once it's confirmed that it's a real card, they'll refund you, but they do want to make sure it's a valid card before they let you get started. So you're able to set up, you have the smart campaigns that we just talked about, and they have the more manual campaigns, what they call expert mode. And this is where you're able to see the differences and how it's done, right? So a lot of the smart campaign is automated. So you set it up, you put in your landing page, and it does a lot of the work for you. Once you get data, or if you already know what type of ads your people are looking for, your ad copy, like you have all of that down, you can switch right to expert mode and just go right into a more manual, it's called advertiser managed, but it is a manual thing, right? You go in and you're looking line by line at the search queries, line by line at the clicks, line by line at the negative keywords. And it's a lot more hands-on, not a little bit more hands-on. So the smart campaigns have a more simplified dashboard. They just highlight the important stats, cost per click, click-through rate, all of that. With manual campaigns, you could see each keyword and each search term and volume and all of that. So I personally prefer more manual. I like to be in control of every single thing, right? But if you're just getting started and you want to try to automate it to get data, that's completely fine too. Just make sure you're keeping your eye on everything. So when you have the smart campaign, you just pick one landing page and they run with it. With a manual campaign, you can say, I want a campaign for blue shoes, a campaign for red shoes, and a campaign for yellow shoes. You have more options on how you can target and more control of your keywords and all of that. This is what your account structure will look like, right? So your account holds all of your information, your billing, your addresses and password, and then you'll have campaigns. And at the campaign level, you control budgets and settings. The settings is locations, the settings is time of day, the location is all of that, right? And then you can have each campaign can have multiple ad groups. So say you have a campaign in America and a campaign in Canada, right? You want to keep them separate. So in the campaign setting, right, you might have just American focused things, and then another campaign, you might have your Canada stuff. Or if you have different strategies, you might set up different campaigns. So if you want one campaign just to get phone calls, but you also want one campaign to get people to opt into something, you can have multiple campaigns. But the objective or the goal is set at the campaign level. So when you transition to expert mode, remember I pointed it out earlier where it says switch to expert mode, that is just at the bottom. And when you click on that, it'll bring you to a screen that looks like this, where you could say, hey, I want to do just search ads. Another option is Performance Max. Display is those network ads that I showed in the beginning where you're appearing on other websites, Discovery, video, or YouTube, right? So you want to pick what you want to do. This is focused on search, right? So appearing on that search query on Google. All right, let's take a break for questions.
Sure. So we have a couple from Kay's. Does Google provide some type of tutorials on best practices?
Yeah, so at the end of this presentation, I have a couple of links on where you could learn on the Grow with Google YouTube channel, and they do have tutorials there. They also do have, like, once you start running ads, they do have like customer service reps that could help you. The disclaimer is they not all of them have run ads themselves. So some of the questions you may have, they may give you like the answer they're supposed to give you, right? Like you ask a question, it's very like customer servicey, phone call kind of call center-y. With any platform, the more you spend, the better your rep is, right? So like if you spend a ton of money, they will send you a private Google rep that is very experienced in it. A lot of this is trial and error, right? A lot of it is like you trying things and it works or it doesn't work and trying something else. But the YouTube Training Center, they also have the YouTube Training Center, they also have a Google Ads certification. So if you really want to learn the ins and outs, it's free to take. And it'll probably take you, I don't know, 10 hours plus an exam. And you don't have to take the exam, you can just do the learning, but they do have a learning center.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for a great session. I mean, somebody who's gonna just new at this, you gave some great tips, like little things as in like use the capital letter for like every word. And I'm like, oh, how do people know these nuances? So I have one quick question. One of the things that I'm still like very new to this, so please take it with a grain of salt. Like I've heard, like you need to have like a minimum of 100 customers for Google Ads to work efficiently or to even start. Like, is that true?
No, so well, one, it depends on the campaign goal or objective, right? So if you're just phone calls, so it's the threshold is like phone calls, like website visits, opt-ins, conversions, right? So when you get further down the funnel, when you're requiring people to take a bigger action or investment, it's more expensive to get them. And Google likes history. So like if you're not getting consistent conversions on your website now, I do not recommend starting with conversions unless you're 1,000% sure of your keywords, 1,000% sure of your landing pages, 1,000%, you know what I mean? You want to make sure you're starting kind of topper funnel and building them down. But yes, Google does like history. So if you don't have any conversions, I don't recommend you start there.
Actually, my next question was kind of leading into that. What is I guess like what's the best conversion rate? Like, is it 30% or where should you like focus on if that's your first goal, get that hump and then go to Google Ads?
That's a great question. So at the end of this presentation, one of the resources I have is benchmarks by industry, because it really depends on your industry, right? So like a 4% conversion in one industry might be rock star, but a 4% in another is like what you doing with yourself. So it really depends on your industry. And at the end of this presentation, I have a benchmark guide so you can kind of get an idea of what's a good conversion rate based on your industry.
Okay, that's great. And sorry, one final question. I'll keep it really quick. So if you have some data on Google Analytics, let's say like about your audience or like where you're getting more traffic from, maybe Massachusetts and New York, I mean, obviously the zip codes you said we could target, like, can you target like audience, age group or like certain interests?
You can do interest, you can do age group, you can do location, you can target people based on like how much time they spend on your page, right? So you could say this person
Okay.
spent 12 minutes on my page. I think they're ready for a conversion ad. You know, so there's different ways you can target, and you can also link Google Analytics with Google Ads, and you can use the audiences that Google Analytics creates and import them into Google Ads. That's a little bit of a more advanced technique, but you can link them and get them talking to each other and being more efficient.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you so much for your questions. We have one more by Mark. I'm told a minimum to spend is 500 per month, or it's kind of a waste. Is that true?
Really depends on industry, right? So like a small coffee shop or local bakery, 500 might be more than enough. Like they probably can even get it for a whole lot less, right? But if you a lot of it depends on the price point of your product. So if you sell $1,000 product or a $500 product, $500 in ads is nothing. So it really depends on the price point of your product
So
and your conversion rate and knowing all that data.
So I'm in the laundry business.
Mhm.
So I've gone down the path of using a couple of companies, and two things I've experienced to date so far is I get charged a lot to set up the Google Ads account, which seems to be a little over the top. Two, I've never had a really good conversion rate. So I get a lot of clicks from Google Ads, a lot of clicks, but my numbers in sales never went up. So it was very hard to distinguish the Google ad to a customer who would walk through the door, because I don't sell products online. So how can you make that connection where someone looks and decides, okay, they're going to come to the store or not come to the store? Like, what do you do to kind of make sure that you're just not taking $500, putting a bunch of clicks? Because to me, clicks don't mean much if I don't have sales. That's like someone who comes into a brick and mortar store, pokes around in the store and never leaves. Well, if you have 1 million customers doing that and no one's spending any money, what's the point?
Well, there's a couple of points, right? So the first thing is like, what was the goal of the campaign you set up? Where are you sending them for landing page objective, right? Like, are you sending them to a place that indicates come into your store? There's a couple of things that does matter, right? If you have a bunch of clicks and no conversions, there are things you can do. For example, you could say, you've visited my website. Here's like, I don't know what you sell. You said laundry. So I don't know if you're like a laundromat or you sell laundry products. Can you just
Laundromat. So I sell
laundromat, right?
So I
So,
sell a
like-
service, right? So it's not a hard product. I sell,
Yep.
I'm either that or a pickup and delivery company. So
Yep. So like, say like you have a bunch of people clicking on a website, right, to find your location, right? So my guess is a bunch of people are looking for a location versus coming to take an action on your website, right?
correct.
Right. So like you have to look at things and you have to do some analytics on your own, right? Like since you started running ads, are you seeing an increase in foot traffic? It's not for nothing. Like you all of a sudden don't have more people walking in your store, right? Like you have to kind of use some deductive thinking and then also give some incentives, right? So if you're like join a wash club, bring this code to the front and you get a free wash or whatever, you're able to then say people are taking action and you're able to do some more tracking. So you kind of have to look at the whole holistic picture of like what you're doing for marketing. And if you suddenly have an influx when you're running ads, while you might not have a ton of in-store traffic, have you done testing to see, are you testing headlines? Are you testing your keywords? Are you looking at your time on site, right? Like looking at those data and constantly monitoring your campaigns and changing them and updating them and optimizing to make sure people are taking the desired action.
Okay.
Yeah, and like it's typical to have a setup fee because while it's easy to set up, for some of the more advanced strategies, the setup is more complicated, right? And so when you're thinking of like, what am I spending, you know, $1,500 management to create this little ad? But if you have somebody in there doing your keyword research, adding your negative keywords, updating ad copy, testing ad copy, doing all of these, it is labor intensive, which is why most people choose to hire it out, because who has time to go search query by search query and say, oh, people don't, if they're searching for laundromat versus searching for like how to hand wash a stain or how to whatever, you have to add all of those as negative keywords. And if you're not going every single day line by line, you know, that's why management of this can be expensive.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
That is good for questions.
All right. So let's talk about improving your ads, which is what we were just talking about. So you want to make sure that you're always tracking, right? You always want to.
And
Yep.
it didn't go to the next slide. Just
Oh,
FYI.
it didn't?
No.
All right. Sorry.
You're good.
There we go. All right. So, you know, we went over the basics of this, right? You get your 30 lines, you get your 90 characters, but you want to constantly be testing these, right? So if you're noticing like you're getting a lot of clicks, but people are not taking the next step, it's time to test some of your ad copy, your keywords, your landing pages. Remember, we talked about the things you can control. You want to go through and constantly be optimizing, right? Because the game is always beating your numbers, beating your own numbers. So you want to go through and think like, you also have an option to do responsive, which means you put in like a bunch of different headlines and then it'll mix and match for you. That can take away some of the heavy lifting. But what you really want to do is make sure that everything is aligning. So when you're optimizing, you want to make sure everything is in line, right? So think about how people are searching, right? Is it relevant to the search's query? Like little things can have very different intent, right? And like adding one word can really change the whole meaning of your ad, right? So like people can be looking for like how to remove a stain versus going to a laundromat, and how people are searching for those. You might just think laundry is a good keyword and all the related things, but when you start looking at line by line how people are searching, you can find very easily that the way you're thinking about your product is very different, or service is very different, how people who are intending to use your product are looking for the information. So you always want to go through and make sure you're constantly testing, and you want to make sure you're adding some type of call to action. You can include prices, you can include promotions, you can, you know, ask people to call you, you could have, you know, all these different things. Always check your grammar, always check your spelling. Typos do look unprofessional. So back in like early 2000, adding typos to your ads was like a strategy, because they thought made people intrigued, or like they want to take a next step. But what we found back then is people were clicking on it to see if your whole website was a hot mess and you were paying for clicks, and they didn't intend on using you because it didn't have that trust built. So you want to make sure you're always testing that, checking for that. You want to do your ad variations, try different offers, try different call to actions, try different wordplay. You want to go through and constantly be updating, right? I'll say this, like, you cannot create an ad and be done. Like, it's just not how it works. Like, you'll have some ads that constantly perform well and it's more of an evergreen campaign, but even then you're constantly monitoring. There is no such thing in ads as saying you did it and it's done and now everybody's going to come and buy $1 million worth of stuff from you. That's just not how it works. You got to think about a couple of things, like people's attention span is so short. And then also, what are their intent when they're searching for this information? If they're just looking to gather information or research, you want to make sure that what you're offering them is just research, not purchasing, right? Because the further they go down in the funnel, the more expensive it is to market to them. So you want to be looking at your objective or goal to make sure it aligns with the action you want them to take. So again, when you're looking at a keyword theme, you want to make sure everything is aligned. I know this sounds repetitive, but if your keywords are not tightly knit, it's really easy for this to go haywire, right? So like if people were looking for a recipe, right? You don't want to show them your ad because you're not selling recipes, you're not selling a recipe book. You want them to actually buy a product from you. So you want to make sure you're going through and adding recipe in your negative keywords and making sure you're going through and make sure everything's very tightly aligned. And you want to make sure you don't have more than like 7 to 10 themes, right? So you want to make sure like when I say like concise, I mean like you want to get super tight with everything and make sure you're separating themes. So if you have like the example early, if you have blue shoes, you want all your blue shoe stuff in one ad group, all your red shoes in one. You don't want to mix them because that ad rank makes it more expensive for you to compete for that ad space. So they also have in expert mode what's called match mode, and this can be very kind of hard to grasp your head around. So they have what they call broad phrase and exact, right? And so that means like if you just want to appear for every search query that has the word jam in it, you're going to appear, right? You can appear for so many things. You can appear for like jam, like jellies. You can appear for like bands. You can appear for like, oh, it's super broad, right? But if you're like, I want to make sure that I have the meaning of that keyword, you want to put parentheses around it, and you want to make sure that's called a phrase. And then that includes the meaning of the word. And then you have exact, that means exactly how you enter that keyword. That's the only way you want to be found for it. So if somebody was looking for cranberry jam and these brackets, that means the only way that your ad will show is if they put exactly concisely the way it is entered in the keyword. They will account for some spelling errors, but you know, it's always better to start with more exact in the beginning. And then as you kind of get some data, you're able to broaden it out a little bit. I know some people like the opposite, where they'll start more broad and then rein it in to be more exact. It really depends on how well you know your ideal customer, on where you should start. Like if you're very clear that people are only searching for 4-inch blue suede heels, put that in exact, right? If you're not sure and you start with blue heels, and then you want to see how people are searching for you to gather some data and then add some more exact match, that could also be a strategy. So a cool tool, and you don't have to pay to use this, but you do have to set up your billing. So if you go in your account and you set it up and you put your billing and you never run an ad, I still encourage you to kind of just play around with this tool. So if you go to the little wrench and click on the tools and settings, this keyword planner gives you all the data about how people are searching on Google. So it'll tell you how many searches per month. It'll tell you all the related keywords. And this is a good place to start if you're not sure about your keywords, because you can get some ideas, and also search volume, right? So if there's 50 searches a month for your keyword, it's not a very big pool, right? So you can't expect to get 50 conversions when there's only 50 searches on it, right? So you kind of have to look at some of that data, and you want a mix of large and small, right? So if there's 5,000 searches on blue heels, you know how you have a good chance to compete in that. But if there's only 20 searches per month in the country on blue shoes, that's a really tough sell. So you also have to look at volume, search volume, because you can only get a piece of the pie, and each keyword, the pie is only so big. So you can get this volume here in the keyword planner. And then you want to add some ad assets. These are what we call the call outs, the site links. Remember, we talked about adding everything, right? Because you just don't know where you're going to appear, and you want to show all the extra information that you can add. You want to add your phone number, if you have a rating attached, phone numbers, if you have additional links, if you have prices, promotions, you want to add this all in, because people will look at your ad and then make a decision. You don't want to pay for a click if you don't have a chance of them buying from you. So you want to make sure that you're filling out everything to the best of your ability. Any questions before we talk about measuring? All right. So when thinking about measuring, you want to think about what is the goal, right? So if your goal is to have people call you, you cannot measure your campaign success on conversions. It doesn't work that way. If your goal is, getting signups or sales, like you can't say, oh, I only got 5 clicks, but if you got 5 sales, it's different. So you want to make sure how you're measuring the success of your campaign is aligned with your goals. So you can't set a goal for website traffic and then be confused as to why you're not getting conversion. So that's why that goal is so important, because your ad will be optimized for that goal. For example, if you're optimizing for phone calls and then you're like, nobody visited my website. Well, your goal wasn't a website visit, so you can't measure the success of your campaign based on that. It's like measuring the success of a frog because they're not running fast, right? Like it just doesn't make sense. You have to make sure that your goal is aligned with how you're measuring success. So you want to keep that in mind. Does this ad make it clear what action people should take? Does it help you accomplish your goal? And when you're thinking about that, automatically people are always like, I want more sales. And like, yeah, we all want more sales, but is that the first goal you should be focusing on, right? And is that the best goal for your business right now where you are? So let's talk about some of the biggest terminology. And I also have like a worksheet I'll send to be sent out to you with all of the terms and everything. So when you're going through your ads, if you're a little bit confused about terminology, it's like a little glossary. So an impression is how many times your ad was displayed. It does not matter how many times it was clicked. This is just how many times was your ad displayed. Clicks is when somebody obviously clicks on your ad, and a conversion is when somebody takes the desired outcome action. So that means if your desired outcome is phone calls, your conversion is going to be based on phone calls. If your conversion is based on getting opt-ins for lead gen, your conversion is going to be based on that. You're not going to get sales numbers or conversion numbers for sales if your goal is traffic or if your goal is phone calls. So when you're getting your reports in the smart campaigns, they just have a really quick dashboard. It's very simplified, and they kind of give you just the overall impressions and clicks and optional conversions. If you're doing it more granular, it'll give you a lot more data. So you can see, like, it'll give you your clicks, impressions, and all of that, similar to the smart. But if you see over on the left, all of these drop downs, you could see which ad groups are performing better. You could see which ad extensions people are clicking on. You could see the landing page performance if you're testing an ad against 2 different landing pages to see what performs better. You can see all of this in the manual settings or expert mode. You can get all kinds of information. You can see here it's keywords, audiences, demographics, locations, ad schedule, the advanced bidding strategies. You can see everything. This is not available in the smart campaign. So if you're doing the smart campaigns and kind of doing it more automated, you're not going to get access to any of this information. When you do automated, you're telling Google, I want you to do all the heavy lifting. I don't want to analyze any of this. So if you do lead ads, you can set up a different conversion in here, and then you can see it'll tell you your conversion value. You enter that yourself. So if you say every customer is worth $25, if you get 100 conversions, it'll multiply 100 by 25. There's also an option for variable conversion. So if you sell all your products at different prices, you can integrate it. It's more complicated. You'll need Google Tag Manager. You will need some additional coding, but it is possible to link everything. So when they purchase $227, that conversion value appears as $227 and not a guesstimate. So you can do this. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can set it up through the Google Ad account in your tools and settings, but there's also, like I said, the Google Tag Manager, when you have to put some coding on your website, and then a temporary cookie is placed and it'll do some tracking and it'll track the journey. That one requires some coding help. There are lots of tutorials online where you could set it up on your own, but it can get tricky. We talked about this earlier. You're also able to link your Google Analytics to, and this will allow you to see the full behavior of your customer, right? You can track different journeys. Do they usually buy on the first click? Do they buy on the third click? Because what you'll also notice is that not everybody's going to purchase from you on the first click. It might take multiple clicks for them to actually purchase from you. So if you link your Google Analytics to your ads, you're able to track that a little bit more. And so that also helps you determine like how much you should be spending, right? Because if you know it takes people 5 clicks to be able to purchase from you and you're paying $3 or $4 a click, is it worth it to you to spend $20 to get somebody to come in and finally make a purchase? If your product is $20, that break even, it might be worth it for you for volume, but you always should be optimizing to get better. Or if you're losing money and you have to, at some point, you have to say it's not worth it anymore. So you have to look at those numbers and really understand your customer journey and how they're behaving in order to make data-driven decisions and how to run your campaigns. So just to recap, we talked about how Google Ads work. We talked about advertising and setup. We talked about improving your ads, measuring success, and then I'll also share some recap and resources with you. This is the Learning Center. It's called the Grow with Google YouTube channel. And if you just click on that link or just type in Grow with Google, they have types of like tutorials on ads, tutorials on YouTube, tutorials on Google Drive, everything, all the Google products, there'll be tutorials. And then we have some additional resources at the SBA. I'm here with the SBDC doing this webinar, but we also have additional resources across the state. So I just wanted to share that. If you're a woman-owned or veteran-owned business, there are resources specifically for you. And then this last slide is where all of these in-depth websites where I got all this information. So if you're like, I want to spend a little bit more time learning about any of these topics, you can go through and click on that and it'll bring you directly to the learning pages. So we'll end with questions and feedback.
Thank you, Amanda. Any questions, last minute comments?
Any last minute polls or anything? And yes, this will be this is recorded and will be shared with you. You'll get the slide deck and you'll also get the that glossary attachment I was talking about with all the different terminology. You'll also get that.
Awesome, thank you. And this was recorded, so for those of you who would like it, the slides and the recording will be sent out.
Appreciate you all coming. This has been so fun to share with you. If you have any additional questions, please email Elena, or if you'd like to see the next step of like some more in depth, that's also fine. Just feedback is always welcome.
Thank you, great job, Amanda.
Thank you. I appreciate you all coming.